Hello everyone, so welcome to this short video on how to do flowchart questions, which will be very useful in particular for combined science chemistry for this chapter on acids and bases, as well as another chapter called qualitative analysis later on. Now, to do flowchart questions for acids and bases, you first need to know the 4 different reactions of acids and bases. So what I call the 3+1. Alright, now the 3 reactions firstly are acid reactions. So it's acid, acid, acid. So I would appreciate if you can copy down and list down the 3 reactions of acids. So what are the 3 reactions of acids? Well, the first reaction we learned, acid plus metal gives you salt and hydrogen gas. The second reaction, acid plus base, forms salt and water. And finally, the third reaction of acids, acid plus carbonate, forms salt plus carbon dioxide gas plus water. Okay, so here are the 3 reactions of acids. Now, how is this useful for a flowchart question? Now, in a flowchart, you will typically have reactions which are depicted by the arrows. Every single arrow in a flowchart question is actually one of the reactions. You first need to recognize what reaction could this be. How would you set out recognizing it? The gases usually can tell you a lot. For instance, if you get hydrogen gas, or they tell you the gas extinguishes a lighted splint with a pop sound, you recognize this hydrogen gas. Hydrogen gas came from a metal. So only metals reacting with acid can produce the hydrogen gas in this case. Another very important clue, another important gas is carbon dioxide gas, CO2. Where does the carbon dioxide come from? The carbon dioxide must have originated from the carbonate. This means that if you had CO2 gas formed, the previous box or the previous step must have been a carbonate. Okay, so recognizing the gases and where they come from, linking it to where they had come from is the crucial thing. So just to recap, hydrogen comes from the metal, carbon dioxide always comes from a carbonate. Okay, so these are 2 very important tips to doing flowcharts. Of course, these are not the only reactions you have learned. Just now I've mentioned the 3+1. 3 reactions of acid plus 1 last reaction of base. So last lessons we have learned a base like sodium hydroxide, like calcium hydroxide. These metal hydroxides are bases. So base plus ammonium compound or ammonium salts will form salt, ammonia gas. Ammonia gas is NH3 and water. So again, we zoom in onto the gas which is formed. Base plus ammonium compound forms salt, ammonia gas, and water. All right. So ammonia gas must have originated from an ammonium compound. So if you see that there's ammonia gas formed, the previous step must have been ammonium something. Could have been ammonium chloride, ammonium sulfate, ammonium nitrate. The idea is if you see ammonia gas, the previous step most likely was an ammonium compound. Okay, so it's very important to get these 4 reactions, the 3+1 reactions, into your head. In particular, which gases are formed from what reactant. Now we shall go on to question 1 as a worked example of how we can approach a flowchart question. So ensure before we go on to question 1 that you have copied down these 4 reactions. The video may be paused at this point to allow students some time to copy down. Okay, so now hopefully you have copied down the 4 reactions in detail and learned these 4 reactions by heart. Now let's move on to a worked example, question 1. Now, in a typical question like question 1, the first thing we should do is not to work out in terms of alphabetical order. You notice there's V, W, X, Y, and even Z. The idea is not to start with V. The idea is to start with gases. Always start with the So you see, there are two different gases here. First, you have a gas which forms a white precipitate in lime water. This white precipitate in lime water is the observation for a gas called carbon dioxide. So this gas is carbon dioxide. So what did we say about carbon dioxide? Carbon dioxide must have been formed by reacting an acid with a carbonate. So if V is the acid, this means that Y is the carbonate. Now, we do not know what carbonate it is yet. Leave a blank, blank, carbonate. Then let's fill in the blank. How do we fill in the blank? We notice that it formed copper 2 nitrate. Hence, Y must be a carbonate, and this carbonate should contain copper 2. If not, how do you get the salt copper 2 nitrate? You work backwards. If my salt has copper 2, then my original carbonate must also have copper 2. So Y is copper 2 carbonate. Now, at the same time, we can already work out what is the acid, right? V is an acid. What acid is it? So you can see it's copper 2 carbonate. Copper 2 carbonate forms copper 2 nitrate. Oh, where did the nitrate come from? If you recall, when we wrote equations, nitrate came from an acid called nitric acid. So V is nitric acid. So you have already saw V and Y. Notice that we didn't go in alphabetical order. We started with the gas and we worked backwards to deduce that Y is the carbonate. And because it formed copper 2 nitrate, Y is copper 2 carbonate. Because it formed the nitrate, V is nitric acid. And with that, actually, you could work out quite a lot of the rest, right? Now that you know it's nitric acid, actually, you can work out quite a lot. For example, nitric acid plus sodium hydroxide. So nitric acid forms the nitrate. Sodium hydroxide with nitric acid forms sodium nitrate. So if you are lost, why is it sodium nitrate? You need to revise worksheet 3 of balancing equations. How do you name the salt that is formed? The salt that is formed must have the metal, in this case sodium, and it's nitrate because it's nitric acid. So sodium nitrate is the salt W. Now using the same logic, let's go to the last particular arrow here, which is our magnesium metal. Okay, maybe I highlight it in green in the different colors so that's clearer for you. So adding magnesium metal to acid V. So magnesium metal plus V. V is nitric acid. So this is magnesium plus nitric acid. So X is the salt, magnesium nitrate. And finally, what do you think is gas Z? Even if you are not asked for gas Z, you should try to work it out, and you can. So what do you think is gas Z? So if you think about it, this is magnesium metal. A metal produces a gas called hydrogen. Okay, and this is how we deduce all 5 unknowns for question 1A. All right, of course, in 1A, they had only asked for V, W, X, Y because you need Z for part B. Okay, but I believe now you should be able to finish 1B yourself. So ensure that you have finished 1A, copying down the answers, and also continue for 1B. What's the test for hydrogen gas? Lastly, let's do one more worked example to get you on track. Now that we have finished question 1, let's go to the last question, question number 5. Question 5 is on page 5. So now we have question number 5. We are going to use the same principles. We are going to make use of the 3+1 reactions, the 3 acids reactions, and the 1 base reaction. Okay. Moreover, we know we must always start with gases first. Always identify the gas first. So you can see there are a few gases. There's one gas C. There is one gas E. All right. And gas E, you are told, turns moist paper blue. So perhaps we should start with gas C first. Now you are told gas C came from, trace backwards like Mr. So, trace backwards like Mr. So, It came from the acid with a metal. Acid plus metal forms the gas hydrogen. So gas C is just hydrogen gas. Okay. Now, besides hydrogen gas, what else did metal A and acid B form? So again, you notice it formed calcium nitrate. Trace back, it came from acid plus metal. So calcium nitrate is formed from metal A and acid B. Therefore, A is the metal called calcium. What do you think acid B is? What acid is acid B? If it formed the salt nitrate, then the acid must be nitric acid. Okay, so A is calcium metal, B is nitric acid because it formed calcium nitrate. So that is A, B, C done. Now let's go on to the other gas, which is gas E. Now this one may be unfamiliar to you, but we went through this last lesson. Which gas turns moist red litmus paper blue? There is only one gas that will do this in your syllabus. The fact that it can turn moist red litmus paper blue means that this gas is alkaline. So which gas is alkaline and can turn red litmus paper blue? The only gas? Ammonia. Take note of the spelling, please. It's ammonia gas. NH3. So E is ammonia because ammonia is alkaline and it will turn moist red litmus paper blue. So again, we trace back. We're going to trace back. Ammonia came from D plus I added calcium hydroxide. So we mentioned at the start of this lesson just now, calcium hydroxide, metal and hydroxide, this is a base. So calcium hydroxide is a base. So what do you think D is? Where could ammonia gas come from? Ammonia gas comes from the reaction of base and ammonium. It must be ammonium salt. So what is it? Is it ammonium chloride, ammonium sulfate, or ammonium nitrate? We don't know yet, but we know it's ammonium because ammonium forms ammonia. So what could it be? What goes into the blank? It's ammonium what? So again, we're going to trace back. Besides ammonia gas, what else did it form? Hey, it also formed calcium nitrate. The arrows went there. Calcium nitrate. Oh, if we form calcium nitrate, the calcium must have come from calcium hydroxide. Where do you think the nitrate came from? The nitrate must have come from D, and hence we can conclude the nitrate is in D, and therefore D is ammonium nitrate. All right, so in a nutshell, what skills, what tips would you need to solve a flowchart question involving acids and bases? The first trick is to know the 3+1 reactions. In particular, know which gases are formed from what. Hydrogen come from metal. Carbon dioxide came from carbonate. Ammonia, as we just saw, it turns moist red litmus paper blue. Ammonia gas come from ammonium. Okay? Now, the next trick you need to know is you will need to actually know you start from the gases. Wherever the flowchart is, do not start in alphabetical order. Always start from where the gases are and then you work backwards. As we have said, using the 3+1 reactions of acids and bases with ammonium compounds. Okay, and that concludes the flowchart lesson. Now, spend the rest of the lesson time to actually complete the rest of the questions from question 1 all the way to question 5, including the equation that you need or any follow-up questions that are in each question. All right, thank you very much.